Our learning sponsors, children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren of Toby Paris, Sarah Tova Bat Yisrael Dov in her memory, Charlie Gelfenstein and Sam Levine in memory of Ramona Levine, Rachel Mata Bat Asher, friends of Nina Monestu, Nechama Azna Bat Yitzchak Aharon, many friends of Stephen Vigdor, Lezechen Nishmat, Simcha Melech Ben Meir Leib Halevi, friends of Marcy Kurtz, in memory of her great niece Leah Bracha Bas Rivka, Isaac and Evelyn Blachor in memory of his sister Vivian Kestenbaum, Chaya Rachel Bas Isser. A month of learning by Carol and Josh Sanborn in memory of her mother Yita Bat Nachman Ben Yamin, Mel and Haran Haller in memory of his brother Yaakov Ben Avraham, Perry and Jill Meltzer in memory of his parents Bela Bat Avraham and David Ben Fishel Halevi. Today is the 12th, and so we have a day of learning today by Terry and Hetty Augenbraun in memory of his father Zev Ben Tzvi Hirsch. May Neshama's heaven Aliyah, Crank Rafia, Velt Yeshiva Shem Latliya, and the Chol B'nai Israel good Gaben Shtiach.
Amen.
All right. So. Right. Okay, so we're on Vav. All right.
We should go back to the bottom.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do.
Go
Okay. No, I'm going to see. I just want us to go back very briefly. Yeah. Okay, on the bottom of the previous Amud. Okay, Hey Amud Beis, towards the very bottom. Okay, we had this whole discussion there. Okay, whether it's mekalkel b'chavura, metakin b'chavura, ve'im timtzeh lomar mekalkel b'chavura, and if you're going to say that it's a situation of a destruction in terms of and that regarding the wound, all right, the mekalkel halacha Rabbi Yehuda. Is it implied that with regarding the issue of causing destruction there, the law is like Rabbi Yehuda? Okay. Right, exactly. Right. Oh, halacha Rabbi Shimon on the top of Vav, Amud Aleph. Or is the law like Rabbi Shimon there? And that's where we left off. Okay. So we're going to continue on the top of Vav Amud Aleph. Okay. So remember, we're coming back then to still our whole discussion is focusing on the question of Harvey's not here this morning. Huh?
Friday night.
Okay, of Bia regarding Shabbat.
It seems to be no question that the wound is a accidental, incidental to what's going on.
There were three opinions.
We'll see. I'm not sure if I would.
Because you want to be able to do it tomorrow too.
I would say the question really is, okay, even though the Gemara says initially a wound, that's why it gets into this whole, if you say this, is it this, if you say that, it's that, things like that, because then you're dealing with Shabbos laws, okay, right? If it's mekalkel, is it metakein? All of these things imply.
And does he want the blood to prove she's a virgin?
Okay, and whether the blood was attached, whether it was pooled, all of these things. Okay, that's what we got that whole previous discussion on Hey Amud Beis. But we still haven't come to a solid conclusion as to regarding the question of Bia on Friday night. Okay, so the point is the Gemara picks up the discussion. Itmar. About this, the following was said. B'bei Rav Amrei, in the academy of Rav Amrei, Rav Shari Ushmuel Asa. Okay, according to the academy of Rav permitted on Friday night Bia, Shmuel forbade it. B'Naharda'ah, Amrei. And in Nahardea, which remember was the location of the Academy of Shmuel, okay, Rav Asar Ushmuel Shari. Rav forbade and Shmuel permitted. So the Gemara makes a side comment here by Rav Nachman. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. How are you supposed to remember who said what where? Okay, and therefore v'simanech. And what's your reminder? Okay, elu makilin la'atzman, ve'elu makilin la'atzman. Those in one place, okay, May said it was the leniency according to where they were. So that way, Rav's location, they were the ones who said, yes, it was okay. That's the cooler. And in Shmuel's location, okay, they said a similar cooler, but only in their location. Okay, so what happens as we go on now in the Gemara? The Rav Shari asks the Gemara, Rav really permitted this? Okay, Va'amar Rav Shimi bar Chizkiah mishmei de Rav, but didn't Rav Shimi in the name of Rav Chizkiah, in the name of Rav, say the following, giving another example? Okay, Hai misuchraya denizaita. Here we're going to have an example of a rag cloth that's used as a stopper in a beer barrel. Okay, that's what the phrase is. Asur lahadoka biyom tava. Okay, it is prohibited to push it in there, okay, on a Yom Tov. So first of all, certainly we would understand if you say it's prohibited on a Yom Tov, it's certainly going to be prohibited on Shabbos, right? Why? Because the liquid is going to be squeezed from the cloth as you stuff it in. Okay, so the Gemara continues. Bahahu afilu Rabbi Shimon modeh. And in that case, even Rabbi Shimon would acknowledge the Abai v'Rava, the Amrei Travayu, that both Abai and Rava, the both of them say the following: Modeh Rabbi Shimon, b'psik reishe v'lo yamut. Okay, that Rabbi Shimon acknowledges the concept of psik reishe v'lo yamut. In other words, an act, okay, that is one thing is going to ultimately and inevitably, that's the phrase we were going towards, okay, result in another further action. Okay, you take the sword, you cut off his head, you're sure the guy's going to die. Okay, well, whatever. All right, all right. If you never heard of the headless chicken in literature, you heard of the headless horseman. Okay,
But it applies to a man too.
all right. Okay,
Or even a snail.
okay. Well, that's only now in southern Florida. V'ha'amar Rav Chia bar Ashi. Oh, I was thinking of the problem they're having with African snails in southern Florida. Giant African snails.
You worry about African snails and I worry about daylight.
Okay, well, there's, right? V'ha'amar Rav Chia bar Ashi. But didn't Rav Chia bar Ashi say Amar Rav in regarding to Rav, halacha ka Rabbi Yehuda, that the law is not like Rabbi Shimon, but the law is like Rabbi Yehuda? Okay, so what happens? Rav Chanan bar Ami Amar Shmuel halacha ka Rabbi Shimon. Versus that, we have a statement by Rav Chanan bar Ami that Shmuel says the law is like Rabbi Shimon. And furthermore, Rav Chia bar Avin matne la below Gavre. Okay, and Rav right Chia bar Avin is saying he's going to recite what the halach is, but not in terms of other names, other people, namely Rav Amar halacha ka Rabbi Yehuda, u'Shmuel Amar halacha ka Rabbi Shimon. That according to Rav, the law is like Rabbi Yehuda. Shmuel says the law is Rabbi Shimon. Okay, now we go on, says the Gemara. Le'olam Rav ka Rabbi Yehuda sevirale. Okay, no, we're saying that Rav always held to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Why? Okay, lahach lishna. According to that language, the amar dam mifkad paki, that held where we said that the reason was that because the blood was pooled. Okay, and therefore what happens when it's pooled? We say,
Like a blister.
okay,
Like popping a
we're going to get to that momentarily. Okay, that it's just to allow the blood to exit. All right, lahach lishna damar dam mifkad paki. Namely, therefore, mekalkelhu, and therefore you're causing this a destructive act. Okay, eitzel hapetach, by that opening. Okay, and so therefore that's why he would be permissive. Okay, lahach lishna da amar dam chabure michbar, but according to the language that said no, that it wasn't pooled, but the blood was attached, and therefore you are causing significantly a wound. And what happens then? Mekalkel b'chaburahu, and therefore you're causing destruction as a result of this wound. And therefore, what happens? Okay, you've got a different reproach. Meitiv Rav Chisda. Now Rav Chisda challenges with the following braita. What about the following? He says, Tinoket shelo higia zmana lirot v'niseit, a young woman, okay, who had not reached the age of puberty, okay, and she went, and she was married off. Beit Shammai Omrim, says Beit Shammai, notnim la arba'a leilot. Okay, we give 4 evenings to allow for the opportunity for mitzvah be'ila.
On multiple be'ilas.
Well, whatever. At least let them do the mitzvah.
No,
of
the
be'ila.
point here is that it's vadai, not nida, so they can have multiple beers. You don't have
Right.
to separate.
Okay, the question, remember the question here comes back to whether the blood on the occasion of that first be'ila, it's not going to be considered, okay, like dam nida. That's the point. Okay. Notnim la'aba'a leilot. We give her 4 evenings. Ubeit Hillel omrim ad shetichye hamaka. And Beit Hillel disagrees and says, no, until the wound is healed.
Which is much more.
Okay, a longer period of time. Higia zmana lirot v'niseit. But if she's reached the age of puberty, okay, and married, Beit Shammai omrim notnim la laila harishon. Beit Shammai says we only give the first night. Ubeit Hillel omrim ad motzei Shabbat. And Beit Hillel says we give her until the first night. So that would imply until Motzei Shabbos. So if she's a virgin and she married on Wednesday night, that still gives Thursday, Friday, Saturday, etc. So,
Rabbi Green, at this point, are we worried about causing a wound or about the blood
both,
that is both?
both. Okay, right? Because if you say that dam, I'll call it dam betulim, all right? If we're saying dam betulim is not the same as dam nida, okay, then you have a different approach to the whole issue. Okay, so what happens is the Gemara there, Hillel Amrim ad Motzei Shabbat, arba'a leilot. That gives you Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, right? Saturday, that's 4 nights, right? So the Gemara now, as we go to the next Amud, raises the question, my love, is it not the following? De'ilo ba'al, matzeh ba'il afilu b'Shabbat? Does this imply that if the chassan is not able to complete that, that's why he's called it mitzvah be'ila, okay? At his earlier opportunity, does this imply that therefore that would permit a bia on Shabbat? Amar Rava, says Rava, no, that's not the case. Lavar mi Shabbat, with the exception of Shabbat. Amar le Abai, and so Abai says as follows: Vaha ad motzei Shabbat arba alelot katana. But here it specifically says until Saturday night, which would imply 4 nights. That's what it's teaching. Ela Amar Rava. Says Rava is trying to clarify Kasher Baal. This implies that he did fulfill that mitzvah be'ila. In other words, that he had accomplished already. I Kasher Baal. And if we're saying that he completed that mitzvah be'ila, or that be'ila mitzvah, right? My kamashmalan. Then what is it trying to teach us? Right? Right? Kamashmalan, the shari lemabeel b'Shabbat, kiddushmuel. It therefore seems to come to teach us, okay, that what? That it's permissible, okay, to have bia, okay, on Shabbos, according to the view of Shmuel. Oh, we had a spill there.
Yeah, you know, the trying to imitate the blood, spilling, or, you know.
The Amar Shmuel, okay, says Shmuel, Pirza dichuka mutar lekanes ba b'Shabbat. Okay, so in other words, what he's saying is that there's a narrow opening. We have another statement that tells us that if you're walking and there's a narrow opening on a wall, okay, and you're walking on Shabbat, you may walk through that narrow opening, mutar likanes ba b'Shabbat, ve'af al pi shemashir tzurot. Even though you're passing through that narrow opening, may cause pebbles or stones attached to the wall to fall down. Okay, but that's still permitted. So based on that parallel, he's saying the implication is that
Not
that's
all beers result in bleeding.
okay, that it should be permissible then to have bia on Shabbat. Now, Koren Steinsaltz had a rather interesting side note here that basically said that that there are situations where the hymen could have been broken under other normal
Or it
situations.
simply stretches.
Okay, right.
It's
If
not an inevitability.
right, in other words, through normal activity of bending, movement,
by the horse.
stories are told of young women who horseback riding, okay, things like that. Okay, so there are certain, let's call it non-sexual activities that could have already caused it prior to marriage night. Okay, we need to keep that in mind. Right? So the Gemara continues with a bright. Meitiv Rav Yosef, and Rav Yosef now tells us the following: Chatan patur mikriyat Shema laila harishon ad motzei Shabbat. But we have another Braita and even a Mishnah. That's right. Right. That says that a groom is exempt from the reciting Kriyat Shema from the first night of his activities until that Motzei Shabbos. Okay.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yeah. Okay. So what happens? Okay. Ad Motzei Shabbat. Im lo asama aseh. If he was not able to do the deed. My love, isn't it the following the tarid? Because he is, I was going to use the word anxious, okay? But the implication clearly is he does not, he does not have the mindset
They
to
use preoccupied, which is the best word.
okay? All right, because he doesn't have the mindset to focus on Kriyat Shema, because ideally he is preoccupied, but anxious, nervous about fulfilling the mitzvah. Right? Is it because he needs to fulfill the bilat, the mitzvah bilat? Amar le Abai. And Abai responds, Lo, the Tarid, the Lo Ba'il. No, he's simply anxious about the
Because he
fact
didn't do it yet.
that he wasn't able to complete the Bilat mitzvah. Amar le Rava, says Rava as follows, Umishum tirda patur, and you're going to say because of this, what a term, anxiousness, preoccupation, whatever, where he's going to be exempt, if that's from Kriyat Shema, elame ata. But rather from here, we say as follows, another, tavas finato. If that's the case, if we're going to say somebody is preoccupied or anxious, and that exempts them for the Shema, how about the following situation? Tavas finato bayam, that he had a shipload of goods as a merchant, and his ship sank in the ocean. Hachinami de patur. Here too, shouldn't he also be exempt then? B'chitema hachinami. And if you're going to say here too, Va'amar Rabbi Abba bar Zavta Amar Rab, didn't Rabbi Abba in the name of Rav tell us the following? Aval chayav.
Avel. An Avel
Right.
is chayav.
Yeah. Avel chayav b'chol hamitzvot hamurad b'Torah chutz min tefillin. That a mourner is obligated to fulfill all mitzvot required in the Torah, with the exception of tefillin, as it says, Shnei Amar Bahen Pe'er, because there it refers to the term of tefillin as Pe'er.
So what's up still with the chairs that are on the ship now? I mean, are we? We're
No,
all
they're
I
not.
mean,
They're on their way here to here. Okay, that's the point. Ela Amar Rava.
That doesn't count if you're coming from Russia.
Okay,
Well,
but Rava says as follows: Tanaihi. We have here a machloket Tanai. The Tana Chada, okay, that one Tana taught, Im lo asama aseh b'rishon. If he didn't do the act on the first night, patur af b'sheni, then he's also exempt in the second. B'sheni, if he wasn't successful on the second night, patur af b'shlishi, he's exempt also on the third night. V'tanya idach, and the other Braita, the other Tana teaches, Rishon v'sheni patur. The first night and the second night he would be exempt.
Wednesday night, Thursday.
Shlishi, by the third night already, chayav.
No,
Right?
the third night is Friday. night.
Friday
The
night,
whole point
and he
of
can't be both Chiyuv b'Shabbos, so therefore he's Chayiv and Kriya Shema.
Shema, right. Right, he is right. That's the implication. He
Right.
does have to say Kriyat Shema that night.
which is a raya, you can't do
For that you
Bia
don't do it
Friday
on
night.
Shabbos.
So that's the machlok.
That's the argument. That's how it's a machloket Tani. Okay. Va'abai hatam nami batirdet plige. But there, Abai, does he also then deal with this issue of
That's an issue.
preoccupation or nervousness or things like that? Is that what he's arguing? Vahani Tanai, Kihani Tanai. And those Tanaim argue similarly to the other Tanaim. The Tanya, as we're taught in the Braita, Hakones et habetula lo yiv'ol b'tchila b'Shabbat. One who brings a virgin into his home shall not have relations with her for the first time on Shabbat. V'chachamim matirin, but the sages permit it. Man chachamim, which sages are we talking about? Amar Rava, says Rava, Rabbi Shimon he. It's Rabbi Shimon. The Amar who says, Davar she'ein mikavein mutar. That's something where there is no intent, okay, is permitted. Okay, it wasn't his intent to cause the wound. Amar le Abaye. And so Abaye responds, okay? In other words, this comes back then sort of to our psik reshe, that the rupture of the hymen produces inevitable
No,
bleeding.
it's not inevitable.
Okay,
That's why Shmuel.
that's
is
why
not-
we're going to that's the argument. Amar le Abai, and the Abai argues, Vaha mode Rabbi Shimon, psik reshe v'lo yamut. But doesn't Rabbi Shimon agree okay, with the concept of psik reshe, that therefore the rupture of the hymen produces inevitable bleeding, and therefore bia with a virgin is forbidden on Shabbat. Okay, that's the point. Amarle said to him, Lo kehalalu bavliim. They're not like those Babylonians. She'ein beki'in bahatiyah, that they're not expert in diverting the direction of the angle of approach. Okay. Right? Ella rather, yesh beki'in bahatiyah. That implies that there are individuals who are expert in angling, diverting. Okay, right?
Around the hymen.
Im Kain, if that's the case, Torah Lama. Then if that's the case, okay, how can you deal with this issue of preoccupation or anxiousness? L'she'eno baki. That applies to those who are not expert at the diversion. Okay? Yomru baki mutar. So let us say then that if somebody is expert, it's permitted to have relations in Shabbat. She'eino baki asur. That if he is not such an expert, it is forbidden to him. Okay? Namely, rov baki'in hain. Oh, now we're saying that most men are able to re-angle their entrance. Okay? Amarle, he said to him, Rabba bar Rav Chanan la'abai, ela me'ata. Okay, what happens? Shushbanin lama. If that's the case, okay, what about
why do we need the shushvinin?
Why do we need these screws? Well, wait a second. Didn't get there yet. Okay, why then do we need the shushbanim, the groomsmen that stand as adim at, okay, adim, okay, and that may be.
Because they want to make sure there are white sheets.
Well, I don't know where you get that. Okay. No, that's a separate argument. Mapalama. So why do you need a sheet then? Okay, so you have adim that stand outside as the witnesses that they are doing the act, okay, preventing anybody coming in. And you also have a sheet that could give proof also of the virginity of the young woman. Amarle, to them hatam shema yira'eh v'yoved. Okay, maybe it's a situation where we're going to say that they will see it and they're going to hide it. They're going to put it aside. Meitiv Rabbi Ami. And Rabbi Ami disagrees with a Braita and says as follows. Hamefayes Mursa b'Shabbat. One who lances a boil on Shabbat. Im la'asot la'peh chayav. If it's to make the opening, okay, simply to make the hole there, then he would be obligated. Okay, he would be chayav on over Shabbos. Ve'im lahotzi mimena leicha. But if the purpose is to remove, allow any pus or something to flow out, patur, he would be.
Says here it's
Patur, he would be exempt. Yes. All right. So let's just finish up a little bit on the top of Zion. Here, patur, exempt. Hatam with the abscess. Pakid va'akid. There it's pulled and removed. Okay. Hacha pakid v'lo akir. Okay. Here. Okay. All right. In there, in that location, it's pulled, but it is not necessarily removed as normal. Right. And that's where we'll stop right there.
Oh, are you a wiggler?
Okay.
Are you a wiggler or a slammer?